Hey there, welcome back to yet another video. And if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and thanks so much for clicking on this video. Yeah, so in this video, we're going to look at arrays in JavaScript, right? So what are arrays? So arrays are basically data structures that we use to store information. So those information can be in different forms. They can be a string, it can be a number, it can be different things, right? So when it comes to data structures are simply specialized ways of a format in which we organize, store, or retrieve information, right? So there are different types of data structures, but in this video, our main focus will be on arrays, right? And how we can use arrays, how do we access information or data inside arrays in JavaScript. So we'll get into our VS Code, which is our text editor. Then we'll be able to now demonstrate how we can use arrays, arrays look like, and how you can retrieve information from arrays, right? So here I have VS Code open. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another folder called arrays. Okay. So inside this arrays folder, I'm going to create a file called index.js. So inside the index.js file, that's where we'll be writing our code, right? So we learned last time that in JavaScript, like many other programming languages, there are what we call variables, right? So even when it comes to arrays, data structures, we need to assign them to a variable that we can use as an entry point, right? That stores our information or data, right? So here we can just say maybe an array of numbers, right? We can say numbers, or shortcut, we just say num equal to, then we use the square brackets to represent an array. So this is an array, and this array can store different types of data types, right? So it can store numbers, it can store strings, it can store Boolean values, and all those information. But since this one specified we want it to store numbers, so you can just put in the numbers there separated by commas like that. Okay, so these are numbers that we have in our array. Now, how do we access these numbers? How do we get access to this information? So with the way arrays work is that for us to access every information there, we use the indexing way of counting, right? So the indexing way of counting starts from the number 0. So when you look at the first digit in here, which is a 1, so for us to access that 1, it's at the position of 0. Okay, then the second one, it's at the position of 1. So the count is always 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on like that. Okay, depending on the number of elements or items that we have inside the array. So now how do we get access to them, right? So for example, if we're trying to print any number from the array, you need to first name the array, which is a num, right? Then you use the same square brackets that we use for the array. Then you put the number, the position, according to its index position, right? So we said for the first one, it's what? 0. So you put a 0 there. When you put a 0 there, you will save our work. If we run this file, okay, let's just get inside the arrays folder, okay, clear that, okay. So when we run that file, which is inside our arrays folder, when we run it, okay, you'll be able to see that it's printing the number 1. Why is that? It's because the number that we are printing is seated on position 0, which is the index 0, right? But if we put 2, for example, here, which number do you think it would be? Right? 5, right? Why 5? Because this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. If we print 3, what will happen? It will print 7, right? So let's try it again. Okay, so we print it's 5. Why 5? Because we've put 2 here. So this is how you access items in an array, right? Now, these single items are not the only data types that can exist in an array. In an array in JavaScript can have different data types. So for example, here I can also have, okay, a Boolean value like that, right? So this Boolean value is seated on the what? The last count, okay? The last position. So if we count this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I put 4 here and save the work, let's clear the console, okay, and we run our program, you see that it's printing there Boolean value which is true. Okay, so it can have different data types. Even a string, we can have a string there of my name, for example, like that. Save the work, come here, we do that. Okay, so what I did, I just printed that we didn't change the number, which is 4. Now, there's a shortcut that you can use to print the last digit. Okay, so there's a special property. Okay, there's a special property called length. Okay, so this length property that we attach to the variable of our array counts the number, it retains the number of items in the array. It doesn't count from 0, but it starts from 1 because it just gives us the number of items in the array. So if you count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items in the array, right? But we can't put 6 here because remember, with indexing, it starts from 0, right? So for us to get to the number of the position number, we have to subtract by 1 because when it comes to counting, we count 1 2 up to the number of items. So we have 0 we have 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So 6 items, but when it comes to the counting in indexing, it will be 0 1 2 3 4 5. So how do we get to 5 from 6? We subtract by 1, right? So this length, okay, let me do that. This length we can just construct a variable and say, can just name it numRent, okay, numRent, like that. Then we put it like that so that this variable holds the number of items in there, right? So we have the number of items. So when we use this character, okay, when we use that variable, sorry, and place -1, right? So what we are doing here is that we are getting a 6 and doing what? Subtracting by 1 for us to get the last item. Okay, so it's clear that when we run the program, there it is, we get the last item. Okay, so if you wanted to just print the length alone, what we can do is just print the number like that. Okay, like that. So when we run our program, what we're going to get is 6. Why? Because the number of items in this array are 6, right? So that's how you create an array, and that's how you access the information inside an array, right? So now, aside from these individual data types, you can also store objects inside an array. How do you do that? So an object, basically we use curly brackets like that. And remember, with objects, mostly we use key values, right? So let's imagine this object, okay? So imagine this object holds the names of individuals, right? So let's say they have IDs. Maybe the first one has an ID of 1, right? Then the second one holds the name, right? So let's say this person is Peter, right? The first object is that of Peter, right? So Peter has an ID of 1, then the name of Peter, right? So with this, you notice that we have this property which is here and this value, right? So these are called key value pair, okay? They are separated by a full colony like that. So this is one object. Then if you want to create another object, you separate them by a comma, right? So you can create another one with, let's say, an ID of 2, okay, 90 of 2, then the name, okay, can say this is John, like that. Okay, so we now have two objects inside. Now, how do we get access to these objects? It's still the same, right? Still the same. So let's remove that. Let's remove that. Now let's print. We want to get access to the first item, right? So say now, remember we use the square brackets, then we put what? 1? No, 0. We put 0. Why 0? Because when accessing the items in the array, you always use the indexing way of counting, right? So we save that. Then let's clear the console. Then when we run the program, you will see that now we have access to the first object. But if we change the number here, we print 1 like that. We save the work. Okay, we check what will happen now. Okay, we are getting now the second one, which is for John. Okay. So in this video, we're just going to look at a few methods, or maybe let me use the word function, right? Because we are dealing with a function programming language. So we are going to look at one and or a few functions that we can use when working with arrays. Okay, so one of the functions is called a map, right? It's called map. We use the map function to iterate or to go through, like to get the items from the array as individuals. Okay, so how does that work? So what we do is we first call the name of the array itself, then you call the map function. Okay, so the map function, what it does is that it has a parameter of another function, right? So a function is acting as a parameter for the map function. That type of function is called a callback function, right? So we have a callback function inside the map. Okay, so here it also has a parameter, we call it item, we just call it item, right? So what happens is if you are using the map function, okay, if you're using the map function like this, what happens is every item inside, every item inside the array is being mapped to this item. Okay, so the first time we map through this array, this first item, this first object will be mapped to this item, and we can do something with it. We can either print it out or something like that, right? So here, remember, this is a callback function. It's a function, right? So we can do that and just be able to console that item like that. Okay, like that. We close our function. So now what we've simply done is that we are mapping all these objects to this item. So the first time we go through this array, we've mapped the first object to this item, and the second time we go again, we map it to the same item parameter, right? So when we save and print, you notice that instead of printing one like we're accessing them here, it will print all these. Okay, so let's just clear the console like that and print. Okay, you've seen, so it's gone through the first one, mapped this guy to this item, then for the second one did the same and printed all of them like that. Okay, now how do you get access to the individual values? Let's say we just want to get the names, right? We just want to get the name. So what you do when accessing items or properties inside an object, we use what we call the dot notation. Okay, so since here this item, remember this item, we've mapped it to these individual objects, right? So for us to access the items or the values in the objects, we just say dot. Okay, then we can call the keys here. Remember, this is the key value pair, right? So we just call the keys. So since we want the name, so here you just type name. Okay, so what it will begin doing is it will just be getting the names from each object inside the array. Okay, so let's save the work. Let's clear. Okay. When we do that, you notice we are only getting the names. Okay, if we change this, we write ID. Okay, then we come here, we clear this. Okay, we do that, you will see that it's only printing the numbers. Okay, so I think for today, this is where we'll end. In the next video, we'll look at other functions that we can use to work with arrays. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and just like and comment. Give me your views. What do you think about the video? What topics would you like me to talk about? So I'll see you in the next video.